All right. Hi, everybody. Tonight we are really excited. We have some staff from the Democratic National Committee joining us to talk about different careers at the DNC. So I'm going to start off by introducing each of our panelists. So when I say your name, if you could just wave so that everybody knows who you are, that would be great. So tonight we are joined by Meg Dimartino, the Digital Organizing Director. Hey, Meg. Leanna Strasser, the Director of State Operations, Political and Organizing. We have Liz Mariapen, Associate Director of Party Affairs, and Devin Mervis, Assistant to the Senior Advisor and Internship Program Coordinator. So tonight they're on here to chat with you all about digital organizing positions in the Battleground Build-Up Program, as well as internships with the DNC. So without further ado, I will let you all take it from here.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here tonight. I am a Georgetown alum, 2016. So very excited to be chatting with you all. It is really fun to graduate in an election year, having graduated in 2016. So very happy to talk with folks who are graduating this year, or maybe folks who are not. I think this works best if I'm going to pass it over to my colleagues who actually have way more to say about internships and job opportunities than I do. But if there are any questions about like hopping on the presidential campaign, getting a job after you graduate, anything like that, I'm happy to help. I think a good place to start here is talking about maybe the program a little bit at the DNC. So digital organizing program at the DNC lately has been doing a lot of trainings that might be really interesting for you all. If you're looking to learn more about digital organizing, specifically online organizing, I can make sure Paula has the link for you all. But I think trainings are a really good thing to do right now. We are also doing a bunch of volunteer activities. If you're looking to kind of get a sense for what voter contact looks like, what sort of work you would actually be doing. There's a ton of volunteer opportunities right now. So I'm happy to also give you those to see what's going on with that. But yeah, it's a lot of online organizing these days. So team has been really busy, and I'm looking forward to kind of continuing this work and scaling it up a little bit, I guess, depending on what happens here. But I will also pass it over to Leanna, who can talk a bit more about some offline organizing opportunities and maybe some resume advice and all the good things.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be talking with you all today. I joined the DNC last year. I left Emily's list where I was the training director, and so I had trained campaign staff for every kind of position that you could possibly think of. And I came over, and one of the big tasks was to lay the infrastructure for our eventual nominee, which now there is a nominee in the last few days. So one of those sort of big components was building up our talent bank, which I'll drop it in the chat box, but if you haven't checked it out, it's just a general like resume bank that you can, send in your resume. I highly encourage, if you are graduating, for you to submit that. It asks for the different departments that you're interested in, and specifically the different states you are willing to go to, because we're really looking to hire in the states. That's where the action is. In 2016, I was in Virginia in the Battleground state there. 2012, I was out in the States. So I highly, highly encourage you, if you're able to go out, to do that. But just a few sort of resume tips as I look at hundreds of resumes every single day in the talent bank. So regardless of what you apply for, these are sort of like good best practices, and shocking, people don't all know them. But number one, make sure your resume is a PDF. I've been sent Google Doc links. People, literally have put into a PDF. They have put in the hyperlink to their LinkedIn. That's not what I'm looking for. And I will say that is an automatic disqualifier. You should have one-page resume in a PDF version. then definitely make sure someone looks at it. Like once you've made it as a PDF, have someone take a look to make sure that weird formatting things did not happen once you switched it to a PDF. There have been some like really strange formatting with like headers, or, you know, half the page moves down to a second page. Just like have someone else open it on a totally separate computer, separate from yours, and make sure that everything's cool with that. Also, title the like the file name your name, and like resume or whatever, you know, you can like put the month and year. But I have like literally thousands of resumes where the PDF is just called resume, and that's hard for me to go find your resume in that stack. So make it really easy for that person to pull it out. Because definitely for like your awareness on the back end, like in a resume bank, like we pull out literally the resumes and like they get sent around to the hiring managers. So think of like just the easiest way to make someone else like move your resume forward. Another thing, I've been seeing a lot of pictures going on people's resumes. I would suggest not putting your picture on a resume. Keep it, you know, professional looking. Your LinkedIn, that's a great place for, but not on a one-page resume, especially where there's not a ton of space already for you to put stuff. So keeping it professional. One thing I've actually been seeing a lot of is if you are not graduating in May 2020, but you do want to take, you know, say the fall semester off and work on the campaign, this is actually my one time that I'd say actually write an objective sentence and include that, because I've had to go back to people and clarify, are you looking for just a summer internship, or are you actually looking for a full-time position in the fall? So if you are going to take the fall semester off, make it clear that way. But otherwise, I would avoid an objective, because pretty much everyone's objective is to obtain a full-time job in the organization. But if you do have kind of like a strange circumstance, or I'd say in the future, if you are, maybe you're applying for like a 6-month thing, you're moving to Argentina for whatever reason, you know, put in the objective there, kind of special circumstances. And then this is always just like a good tip, but have like your own multi-page resume that's got everything that you've ever done, and then really like cut it down for what you are actually applying for. I've been looking at some resumes where it's really confusing when I see like a 3-page resume and I'm not really sure kind of like the person's path forward. But if they had just like cut it down to like 3 things, that could have like been a much cleaner presentation of their work. So those are just some big tips overall for resumes. Like I said, the DNC Talent Bank, we are in full gear right now. We had actually started hiring in January when we launched Battleground Build Up, which initially was sort of a program for organizers and mid-level staff to eventually work on the presidential campaign. We hired them through state parties. And now that we have a nominee, it's not just, you know, a few folks. We are really kicking that into gear. For context, in 2016, around this time, I would say there was like maybe 300 people on staff for Hillary's campaign, and that grew by August to over 3,000. So like we are in a ramp that is going very fast. If you are interested in a presidential, also happy, you know, if you want to like shoot non-presidential questions in the chat box, happy to answer those as well. But by and large, we're really focusing on gearing up for the presidential, although I do pass resumes on to our sister committees. So the D-TRIP, the DS, CGA, all the other down ballot races. So, you know, happy to also keep sending resumes that way as well. 2-page resume. I would not have a 2-page resume at this point. The only folks I really see with 2-page resumes are people who have more than 10 years of experience. But I will say, not in my wearing my current hat, but in other jobs that I've been at, 2-page resumes for like a policy position job, or going to like a nonprofit place that's a little different, but campaign and like political resumes are very much like 1 page. So those are my sort of overall tips, but I'll stay on and happy to keep answering questions as they come in later on, because I know we've got other presenters.
Yeah, if you want to continue to drop your questions in the chat, we can take them towards the end, or as if they're for a specific person, you can also say that. But yes, Leanna has individually reviewed several thousand resumes at this point. So
yeah,
I think
definitely.
that is something she's an expert at and can tell you more. But now I'd love to turn it over to Liz Mariapen, who has worn many hats at the DNC. So I let her talk a little bit about her background. But yes, one of our internship coordinators. Yeah.
Thanks, Meg. So yeah, I've been at the DNC. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to do this. I love speaking with students. But so yeah, I started at the DNC about maybe, I want to say, about 2 years now. And my first position was working as an operations assistant after receiving my master's at American. Yeah, pretty much have been in the operations department for about 1.5 years, and then recently transitioned to party affairs in the assistant director or associate director role. Very exciting time, lots to do. And so right now working with Devin to transition the program to her. And so with the internship program, pretty much we have about, I want to say, a smaller amount of departments now, but 18 or so several departments at the DNC. And with the application and also with our applicants, we do seek to fulfill the needs at the DNC at the time. And so you could be placed in any one of those departments. So it can range from political and organizing, mobilization, it could be in possibly our research department, party affairs. There's just so many options, and you can find more descriptions of each of those departments on our site. But the application itself and what we're looking for are young people who are passionate about our mission and our goals at the DNC, and also who really want to not necessarily always need to work in politics, but maybe the skills that might surround that. So maybe your writing skills, right? Communications, people who love to express themselves in that way. It doesn't necessarily need to be a passion in policy. And so it can be other skills in operations, like learning logistics, working with our mobilization team, really understanding how to do outreach to donors that are not necessarily over the phone. It could be online. And how does that process work? It could be working with our leadership team and our officers and really understanding the day-to-day schedules and the impact of their work in various places across the country. So it really just varies on your interest and how you best want to engage people in a political space. We are very hands-on. This is not an internship where you're going to be making copies and getting coffee for people. We are, a space where this is pretty much a pipeline to working at the DNC. And as a former intern myself, I've seen other interns that have come before and after and during my time here that have pretty much become staffers. So, I mean, it is a great opportunity. And even so at this time too, we also offer a stipend with the internship program. So that's another benefit. And I mean, to learning hands-on experience and also having a great network. We do a lot of programming with our internship, and even in a remote space, because that's right now what we're moving towards. We will still be doing a lot of opportunities for students to connect with our leadership team, possibly with our officers and other folks that might be working in these political spaces, maybe with our sister organizations as well, to really learn what they do. Because not a lot of people know what the DNC does. So I think that is kind of a brief overview of the program. The application process, kind kind of aligns a little bit with what Liana was mentioning with your resume and things of that nature. But what we require and what we look at are, and our application is also on our site, but it requires a letter of recommendation, a resume, and also an essay portion, which we kind of just ask an overview of, hey, why are you interested in working at the DNC? And, what skills would you bring if given the opportunity to be there? And so we're really looking at those writing skills and what you guys might want to bring to the table. So a question here from Ryan James, it says the priority deadline for the summer has passed. Are there still vacancies? Okay, so basically the priority deadline is just a cutoff date for those who, want to get their stuff in, and it guarantees review. But we do accept applications on a rolling basis. At this time, a lot of the applicants have been reviewed. So if you want to get your application in, I would encourage you to do it as soon as possible. But just to let you know, like for upcoming terms, if you're interested, that will still be the case. There will still be a priority deadline. It will be to guarantee that your application will be reviewed if you apply by that, whatever date we designate on the site.
Liz, can you say a little bit more before you pass it on about what Party Affairs does?
Oh, yeah.
I am like personally very nerdy, so I love the Party Affairs department. I think they're the people who literally set the rules, guys, or work to coordinate a lot of the rules that goes into like being a committee, goes into like all the state delegates, everything like that. So if you want to talk a little bit more about that, Liz.
Yeah. So this is very new and exciting for me. So we work with our RBC committee. So basically they're the Rules and Bylaws Committee. And what they do is it's a group of our members who pretty much meet and kind of designate like what the rulings are, what are we going to abide by when nominating a presidential candidate, and other, I guess, guidelines that we want to set aside as the DNC. And a lot of folks are like, hey, and I'm sure you'll see this on Twitter, on the news. It's like, the DNC doesn't want so-and-so, or doesn't, does this, or did that. But the thing is, we do have a set of guidelines that we follow. And we don't just say, hey, this is what we want, this is what we're going to do. It doesn't work that way. These folks spend a lot of time, and they've been working on these procedures for years. And so every single time we have an election, it does change. And pretty much that's just the gist of it of what they do. And what our team does is we work alongside with them to pretty much kind of provide the guidelines and work with states and our territories as they do process these elections. And so you'll probably also notice now with all these changes with primaries, we are working with these states to kind of provide the guidelines of how do we do mail-in ballots, how do we do this electronically, what are the best and safest measures to do that with our tech team, with also other consultants. So it's pretty much, that's my job on a regular basis, working with my team to kind of produce the best, I guess, practices for states and territories for you guys, so that, we don't have another Wisconsin, I guess, where you guys' voting rights might be jeopardized because of rules that are like just out of control. So I guess for our team, that's pretty much what we do. And then when it comes to the convention, we are pretty much working like hands-on with our committee to nominate that candidate. And right now we do have one standing candidate. And so we will follow the procedures so that we can ensure that we are doing the nomination correctly, and then going from there. So it's pretty exciting. We'll see how that will roll out. But yeah, that's what we do at the Party Affairs team.
Thanks, Liz. That's awesome. I just like rules, I think. So I think that's why.
Oh my gosh, I have to study all those rules. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool stuff. I mean, it's lots of reading, I'm not gonna lie. But when you get to see the fun part about it, and I'm sure all my colleagues can agree, is like, you do a lot of the behind the scenes work, and you're doing something at HQ but the beautiful thing is seeing the impact and the outcome of your work. And I think that's the thing that we really strive for, is to see the positive. So yeah. Thanks, Meg.
Thank you. And Devin, last but not least, if you want to round us out a little bit, talk about anything else yourself, and anything else about the summer internship program that you want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came on to the DNC in the beginning of October 2019. So that was just about 6 months ago. I am a 2018 graduate of NYU undergrad. And I found myself in DC after I graduated doing an internship in the Senate. And then afterwards, I had a stint where I was not working at politics at all. I was working in a law office, and I applied to I believe it was the talent bank for the DNC talent bank. And my resume was passed along, and I was pulled on as an assistant to Mary Beth Cahill, who is our senior advisor. And for a while we were still in the beginning of the primary cycle, her most prominent part of the job was working on the primary debates. And so I assisted her with all of that and her scheduling and everything that, her work sort of encompasses, as well as our data negotiations and our data operations and all of that. And so as obviously primary debates have winded down and her job has shifted, they asked me to take over for Liz, who's transitioning to party affairs, as the internship coordinator. So this is my first time ever doing any hiring, running any sort of internship program. I was obviously an intern many times over during my time in and out of college, but I have a very brand new sort of perspective to the process. As Liz mentioned, we still are accepting applications. It's a rolling admission sort of thing, but we have, gone through the process. And looking at applications, one of the first things that I definitely look at is how your resume is pieced together. I think that we'd mentioned before that a long resume can have things get lost in the weeds. A resume that has a photo on it sort of pulls your eye away from actually looking at people's qualifications. And then also, one of the things that I have found, and I had to be told coming from my background working in other places and transitioning to politics, was that if you have a sort of overly designed resume, it's just going to have things get lost in the weeds. It's not going to pull the eye in the way that you think it's going to be. My best friend's a graphic designer. She thought that I would love this beautiful resume, and for a long time I did. But when I moved to DC, one of the first pieces of advice that I got was pare it down and make it very simple. And so unless you are applying for a creative job in politics, we pull on interns for our graphic design team and everything like that. That's obviously a place that you can show your talent. But if you are applying for almost anything else, you want it to be very simple and straightforward in black and white. One of the things that I also look at that should not be taken, for granted is the essay portion, as we mentioned. Most jobs won't have an essay portion when they ask you to apply, but they will ask you to do a cover letter. And I think people think just repeating what you have on your resume should go into your cover letter, but I think that it is an absolute waste of the opportunity to sort of show how well-spoken you are and your interest and, why you ended up here. It shouldn't be too narrative, but it should obviously provide a little bit more context than just what you did at every single internship and job before this landed in my lap. Besides that, I think that if you don't have mounds of experience in politics before, just show how passionate you are, and people will want to look at that, and people will not set you aside just if you have not had a single internship experience in politics before. But yeah, those are my number one tips. And also, don't be afraid just to go out there and apply for every single job that you could possibly be interested in, even if you think it is a far off thing. I found when I graduated and I left my internship that I was nervous about how many people would have to look at my resume if I applied to, heaps and heaps of jobs. But it is one of the best ways to practice writing and revising your resume for each job. And it's also one of the best ways to make sure that you are getting seen by the most number of people. But yeah, I'll pass it back to Meg, and we can answer any questions about the internship program or how, it's going to go in our new world.
Yeah, a piece of advice I kind of related to that, Devin, and thank you for sharing that, is you should take as many interviews as you can. Like, interviewing gets easier as you like practice, you sort of have like you get comfortable like with your rehearsal of it, so I would take every interview you possibly can, like if you're interested in the job, if you're not, and like speak the words, like don't like answer people's questions, get comfortable not tripping over yourself, so that when you are interviewing for a job you want, you are like ready to go, practiced, have answers ready to go, with the caveat that if you're looking to work for a candidate, like on a campaign, never talk to the candidate if you are not interested in working for the campaign. So you can waste everyone's time. You shouldn't waste anyone's time, but you can waste people's time who is not running for office. So like if you're going to work for a Senate campaign and the candidate calls you to interview you, you should be sure you would like that job if you were offered it. That's my piece of advice on interviewing everywhere, but I would recommend that. Yeah.
One of the things that I would say with that is also if you have the opportunity to do informational interviews with people that you meet through your network and everything like that, jump at it. It will feel awkward going to a coffee shop with somebody that you don't know, that you've been introduced through somebody else, but that's just the way that it is. And not only does it provide really good experience at talking about yourself, which some people are very good at, I'm very good at because I do it all the time, but if you feel weird pitching yourself to somebody that you know socially or will get to know socially, imagine how weird you'll feel pitching yourself to somebody that you've never met before in an interview. And getting over that was like my biggest hurdle, and I don't think that it should be taken for granted.
Yeah, one thing I want to say, there's a question here about a skills section. So something that drives me personally slightly nuts is when I'm reviewing a resume and it has like you like rate yourself on your skills, like you fill in like 4 out of 5 stars for this tip. The only thing that tells me is that you're telling me you're slightly bad at this thing. Whereas if you just say like, I am skilled at Van, that's great. Like I think you know Van. Whereas if you're giving yourself a rating, you're like kind of batting against yourself here. So I think like Liz says here perfectly, like keep it very simple. No need to rate yourself, add bubbles or stars or anything like that. Just literally lay out the skills kind of as you have them.
Same. And same thing with languages. If you're, a beginner in some kind of language, don't put that. Unless like it's asking for it. Beginners section is just like not helpful. The fluency is super helpful.
What other questions? Paula, is there anything that you want us to speak to specifically, or?
Oh, it has one here actually. How is the DNC, it just popped up, Meg. How is the DNC summer internship program adapting to the COVID-19 situation? Great question. And Devin can talk about this a little bit too, but we actually, so right now we're doing the transition, and our interns are interning remotely now. And so I think for us to adapt to the situation, we're just really learning how to utilize the tools that our tech team has given us. So just using Zoom and like meeting weekly. Last week, our interns had a chat with Tom, and it was really fun actually. But it would, typically we would do a sit down. And so I think just really transitioning everything online, and also to the fact of, assisting other departments. So like with our political team right now, they have a huge database project that we have some of our interns working on. So, the good thing is our interns they're not limited to the work that they're doing at the DNC. They're still having the same opportunities. It's just doing it online for the most part, and connecting and networking that way too. And to the question prior, I mean, with interviewing, one of the number one things that our interns talk about a lot is they struggle with networking, and they're not really sure how to do that. But I think one of the things that we're going to address because of this piece of working online is really trying to have more one-on-ones with our leadership team and our department directors, so that they can really touch base and learn from them.
Yeah, I mean, we've like I think for COVID generally, so my team, digital organizing department, has been around for many years, the DNC. I've been in this role for about a year now, so it's not new by any means, but it has gotten a lot of love in the past 5 weeks or so because of COVID. So we are like actively shifting many of our operations. Like we know we cannot just take a sabbatical for this time period. So I think to say like it's obviously constantly evolving. We don't know when things will reopen and all of that stuff, but I think I feel like the DNC has been handling the transition quite well overall. Oh, that's it. I can answer this question. How will the shift to virtual affect the relationship with state and local Dem party orgs? Well, so I actually didn't say anything about my background, but before I was the digital organizing director at the DNC, I was our Northeast mobilization director. So last year, or the 2018 cycle, I should say, there were regional desks. So on my team, there were 4 of us, and we were Northeast, Midwest, South, and West. And we all, our job was basically to help state parties in our region run really strong digital programs. That was how I spent the 2018 cycle. And then eventually, so I was at the DNC for that, and then I was eventually deployed up to Maine to help the governor's race there. So we, a huge part of my job, I think all of our jobs, especially Leanna here can speak to that too, is coordinating with the state parties, working with them. I think the DNC, before Battleground built up, our huge investment program in Battleground states and early organizing has not had field offices before. So we rely on the state parties for coordinating on the ground and supporting them through the people who live in the states. We always say, we know that we're in DC. We know that we have to win in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida, all these really important battleground states and across the country. So I think how we view our job in part is by supporting the state parties as we can, and as they do some of this work on the ground. So going virtual has not affected our relationship really. It's made it stronger maybe by chance, because we've had to they've just leaned on us a little bit more. We've been able to work together on more because we're all at home, we're all coordinating online. So yes, so that is a good thing for that. But also we've been able to spin up some trainings, help everyone transition over to virtual things, trying to conceptualize virtual voter reg and all these other operations, virtual vote by mail, obviously getting folks to register vote by mail. So I think that is how it will affect that. But yes, another question here is, what is some advice you have for students who don't have much previous work experience when looking for academic professional references?
Yeah.
Liz, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead. Go ahead, Devin. Go ahead.
So one of the things that I would say is a lot of jobs will ask you for references, if not, an actual physical written reference with your application. And I would say if you haven't had a ton of jobs and a ton of teachers, if you're earlier in school than, let's say, your senior, pick somebody that has got to know you well enough to actually write about you or to actually speak about you. Because if you think that you just did well in somebody's class, or you were a backup on a project somewhere and they didn't actually get to know you, they're having a really hard time writing anything convincing about you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be connected to the job that you are applying for, as long as they can give an overview of what your actual talents and skills are, and whether or not you were trustworthy for them to complete whatever project or paper or presentation that they needed you to do. And I think one of the other mistakes is to pick somebody that will write about you that you just know. In my experience, and Liz can also touch on this, everybody else can touch on this, but that is not, for me, the most convincing way to get hired somewhere. I think that you need to have been put in a position to prove yourself either academically or professionally to whoever you've asked to write about you, to really show that you are capable and confident enough to do this job.
And yeah, I agree with that.
Also, something I found, which sounds this is a really weird experience. Sometimes if you write it for them, that especially like busy professors, folks like that, that will help people want to do it for you. You should only do that if you have a good relationship with, like, if a person is comfortable enough with you that they would feel comfortable you writing this for yourself. But I've sometimes asked like for a reference and they'll be like, great, yeah, can you do it? And I will read it and then sign it. So that like that might be a situation that happens to you. So it would not be like, you shouldn't like offer that, but that's sometimes helpful in like, because people are busy and they especially this time of year, people get a lot of those. So
absolutely. And something else that I've found with that, I've been asked to write, a draft reference for myself and then hand it off to a professor before. But another thing is, if you feel not confident in being able to write in somebody else's voice, or, sell yourself in, third person, which is hard to do, right? It's hard to master sort of talking about yourself without letting somebody know that it's you talking about you, is ask that person. Obviously now you can't meet for coffee in person, but ask them to do a phone call, or, ask them to, if they do have the time to actually write it, they just don't know what you're looking for or what you need per se, get on the phone with them, get on Zoom with them, talk a little bit about what you think, this application is asking of you, and what you think that your resume says about you, and all of that sort of stuff. And, just have a conversation with them like you would any other professor, any other former boss, or anything like that. And that will really give them sort of a good guideline to what you need. And also, if there's somebody that you haven't worked for or been in a class with recently, they will need to like be refreshed about who you are, right? A lot of professors meet a lot of kids. And I think that, we remember them very specifically, but they need sort of, another couple of minutes to catch up with who you are.
Yeah, got some more questions here too. How many interns do we normally take by department or just overall? Do we have a cohort number?
Typically during the fall and spring, we take about 10 to 15 students, and for the summer, it will range from 15 to 25 students.
Awesome. You always feel in the building when the summer interns leave, because people are a mess. It's like, oh my God. Because it really is like our interns have done, they're like literal people on the team.
I mean, they're just such a great support, and everybody looks forward to the interns coming and joining our team. And you do feel their presence when they do leave, because it's just so much of an impact, and we do look forward and love having our interns work alongside with us.
Yes. Who should apply for Battleground Buildup versus a regular internship?
So Battleground Buildup would be that you will work through election day full time in that role. So most are going to be out in the States, like I said. The nominee will hire a small team to be in their headquarters or their virtual headquarters, depending on how things go. But by and large, the majority of staff are state-based to help us win those battleground states. And they'll have certainly summer fellowship programs, and they'll have summer short-term opportunities. And I've also seen in some years, they'll do like a 6-week sprint to election day kind of fellowship or things like that. So they will have those opportunities come up as well. But Battleground Buildup is if you're graduating or you're going to take the fall semester off, which you should think about doing.
Yeah, I think also I remember graduating and not really being sure how a presidential campaign works. So I think a little bit more on that too. And Leanna, please feel free to jump in. There's basically a headquarters. So Joe Biden's is in Philly. He's the presumptive nominee. So there's a headquarters, and that has people who are like your desk or people who sort of coordinate things for people in the States. It is way more fun to be in the States. There are usually people who just who it happens that they're states people or they're headquarters people. But I worked in Michigan in 2016 and absolutely a states person. It's so much more fun. That's like where the events are. Your candidate is coming there all the time. It's like just a really fun experience, especially as a first like kind of out of college gig. So the states have like, it's really where all the organizing happens also. Headquarters is just like your fundraisers normally. A lot of digital staff will be there for fundraising purposes, like ads, email, that sort of thing. And like strategy business. But the states are really where the organizing is. So that's, I think, the most fun part of it all. But like, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just think about it from the perspective of headquarters is, like Meg said, like it's kind of overseeing the states, but what actually happens is in the states. So like in 2012 I was an organizer, and then 2014 I was in a headquarters position, and like I had to go back in 2016 to a state and get out of headquarters because you're removed from it, and you're not feeling that same like impact. You're kind of more like looking at spreadsheets, whereas like you're calling real people, you're knocking on doors, you're really getting to see that community.
Super fun.
Yeah.
To be in the states.
Yeah.
And you should not feel like that's anything less, like that's like less of a job, working in a state. I feel like that's like a misconception sometimes people who haven't done it before think, but like it is just more like, it's just better, honestly. They will also not hire a ton of entry level folks to a headquarters. So the states are actually like a good place for you to kind of begin.
Yeah, definitely.
Some other questions here. General volunteering. Yes, tons of ways to volunteer with the DNC. I can make sure to give that to Paula to follow up with you all after the fact. But yes, lots of ways to volunteer. We have a question from Eric asking, is it more impactful to get involved with campaigns directly in these critical states or with the state party DNC for a summer internship? Yeah, do you have thoughts on that?
I mean, impactful is hard to say. I think it's kind of more, what are you looking to do? Like, what is that experience that you want to have? I will say, like I used to advise state and local candidates when I was at Emily's List, and that's a really small team. So, if you say you really want to develop your fundraising skills, volunteering as part of a state legislative campaign in your local area, that's going to be like a team of like 4 people. So you'll definitely really be able to see up close and personal how that goes. But a state legislative campaign is just vastly different from, you being a part of a presidential campaign or a part of a larger thing at the DNC. So I think it's more, and in general, when I give people work advice, like think about what is that experience that you want to have, or like the specific skills that you want to develop in that time period, and kind of let that guide you from there.
Yeah. Also, if you live in a battleground state, I would recommend staying in that battleground state if that is an option for you. We look for people who are like to hire in those states who are from them, because you just have a better sense of the community. Like you are able to adapt a little bit quicker because you're from the area, you live there already. Like logistically, it's easier. So I think if you live in a battleground state, you should try to work in a battleground state. But whether you do that for the state party or a campaign is mostly dependent on what you want to do. We're all working towards the same thing at some point, Another question here: if social distancing doesn't stop until after Election Day, how will campaigning change? Is it still worth it to apply for a campaign job if field operations aren't going to be existent?
They'll still be existent. They're just going to look different.
The operations will never cease.
Yeah.
win in November if we stop organizing. So I think it will all evolve a little bit, but you should not be worried that it's going to be non-existent.
Yeah.
It will for sure be there. I think campaigning is going to change if social distancing is still happening, of course. I think everything will continue to be online. There will be a larger push for vote by mail, but I don't think, I think the key things that we still do to win campaigns will still be the things that we do. So yeah. Anyone have other thoughts on that?
No, totally agree, Meg.
Yeah. There will be organizing. There will be an election day. Those are two things I can promise you. For students who haven't had any work experience, internships in politics, what are the best ways to get entry-level experience? Devin or Liz, you want to take that one?
I just wanted to see if Devin wanted to go ahead first.
Oh, I can. I mean, I'm the most recent at this, so I guess. Okay, it's me. I would say, so I luckily was at a place, or I was at a school rather, that really encouraged us to take internships during the school year. NYU, that's sort of its like main thing, its main calling card, besides being, you know, in the city, is that they really ask you, even if you're not going to use them for school credit, to have internships like every semester, every other semester. So I had a lot of internships that did not start off in politics. I worked in an art gallery, and I worked for an NGO, and I did a couple of other things, and I found myself just before the 2016 election, maybe 2015, changing my major, and I knew that I wanted to do an internship in politics, and the first places that I went to apply were the borough party. So I lived in Manhattan. I applied to the state party, and I applied to also various political consulting firms. It is a weird way to get experience, obviously, because it's not directly working with candidates or anybody like that, but it is useful to see because there are a lot of ways that each city's politics are different. New York is obviously like a different scale than if you're living in where I lived before, which was Decatur, Illinois, their Democratic Party. But it was, I ended up at a political consulting firm, and that for me was very interesting. They did speech writing, they did advertising, all of that sort of stuff that we also do at the DNC, but from an outside perspective, was interesting as, you know, a 19-year-old, 20-year-old. And then after that, I knew that I wanted to do more internships in politics, but I did not have the most experience. And again, when I say that you just need to apply everywhere, you really just need to apply everywhere. Like, it's just a massive amount of work, and it's sort of hard and embarrassing to just sort of constantly audit yourself and put yourself out there, but it is good practice. It is guaranteeing that you are going to get looked at by somebody, and also just looking at places that you wouldn't necessarily consider the number one place that you would want to work, right? If you don't have entry-level experience in politics, look at, you know, your county party, your state party, you know, look at your city council, look at places that you can get experience in what politics is actually like before trying to go out and apply for, you know, an internship with, you know, the minority leader in the Senate or the majority leader in the House, right? It's just the best way to do it is to look at what your community actually needs. And a lot of the time, your city council actually needs volunteers, or, you know, your state party actually needs people to knock on doors. Not anymore, don't go knocking on anybody's door, but like beforehand. But yeah, that's exactly what I would say. And then if you don't have that experience, still apply everywhere, right? Just people will look at your application and people will see that you are professional, that you are put together, and that you are impassioned about the work that you are going to be doing. And that counts for a whole lot of everything. So yeah, that's what I would say. Liz, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I would say also don't dismiss like leadership roles that are on campus. Like, I think that, you know, a lot of our students are participants in like college Dems, you know, and similar type of clubs. And I think, like, for me, just to give you guys a background too, just to see like from non-political to political, I used to be a teacher and like work in education, and I did not have political experience. And then I went to grad school for my master's in public administration. And what I did was aside from getting really involved in school, like our council, our like grad school council, I did what Devin did was, apply for a ton of internships. My first internship was with the mayor's office with Mayor Bowser. My second internship ended up being at the DNC the following term. And then my last internship ended up being paid with CFPB, which was really dope. And so I kind of had opportunities at all three levels, but I kind of moved my way up. And the way that I did that was I took unpaid internships. I, tried to really engage in research that was tailored to like urban communities, like things that kind of like will give you that civic experience in different capacities. So look at it that way as well.
Also just felt like volunteer for one of these things if you want to work for them. I think so. When I was hiring fellows earlier this year, and something I looked for when I was hiring them was just people who like have interacted with a campaign. Like when you're hiring for an entry-level job, no one should expect you, like I'm not expecting you to have a cycle under your belt if this is an entry-level job I'm interviewing for. So I wouldn't be worried about that. But I think like showing that you have interacted with Georgetown politics is even a great thing. Like I'm like, for me, I see that, and for me it signals that you have an understanding of like this sort of work, you want to work in this way, and like we'll interview and talk about it, so you should not like discredit like extracurricular activities or volunteering, because I think they are good experience if you don't have any other things. Well, it looks like we have one more question here. The car question, Leanna, this one is just for you. But on several applications, it requires campaign applicants to have their own car. How significant a factor is that in working on a campaign?
Yeah, if they're saying that it's a requirement, then that position, it is a requirement. Not every single role do you have to have a car, but I would say like organizing jobs need cars, unless like you're organizing a very urban community that is completely public transit accessible. But there are other jobs that, like a fundraising job, I don't see why you would have to have a car to be able to do your job. But organizing, you're just going around the community so much. So if they're saying it's a requirement, then it is for that role.
Yeah, so we in 2016 hired someone who told us he had a car, and it turns out he didn't have a car, and he was organizing in like Pontiac, Michigan, which is not inaccessible. It's not like farmland, but it's also not like, there's not like a public transit line. So after several weeks of him being late to everything, we were like, what's up? And he was like, it's very hard to get Ubers because it's not like a populous city. So also don't lie. So it is like not a very accessible thing always having a car for this line of work. And that is unfair, frankly. But you should be honest about that, because people will rely on this fact here. So just be honest about that. Or you can also say, like, I've also people who say that they like don't have a car but they can get one. That's a good conversation. Like if you have an ability to do that. I know it's like not an accessible thing. It should not be a requirement. But this was great. I don't know if there are any closing thoughts here from Paula or others, but this was really fun to talk with you guys. I'm going to send Paula a bunch of different like follow-up things if you're interested in volunteering or reading more, or the talent bank link as well. We'll be sure to send around, so we can follow up with that stuff. But yeah, please keep in touch. I'll also include my email. You guys can reach out. I'm happy to answer any other questions individually or yeah.
All right, great. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to chat with our students. Anybody who signed up for this session through the Google form, I'll be sure to forward all those links. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you all.
Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.